Welcome to our podcast, Groundbreaking Conversations, Global Resilience Series. Today's chapter is Africa, Nigeria. I'm Naila Hussain Chaudhry, your host and co-founder of Pillars for Dignity. With me is our esteemed moderator, Emmanuel C. Perlman, CEO and founder of Destination Peace International. From the time I've met Manny, he's been my mentor, advisor, and guide. And he's kind of the unsung hero who saved hundreds of lives with his presence, support, and advice. Thank you, Manny, for being in our lives. Pillars for Dignity and Destination Peace have collaborated with the purpose, vision, and undying desire to make a better world with parallel life-sustaining principles based on sustainability, empowerment, equity, diversity, and inclusion, which leads to inclusive communities, sustainable living, and empowered peaceful coexistence. Together, we are inspiring and supporting resilience, especially to the underserved women and girls. It comes from first recognizing those who are suffering and surviving, and paving a path by providing them with life skills, access to finance, and economic empowerment programs through Lotus Credit to live life with dignity and a purpose. In our podcast series, we will share honest, encouraging, candid stories by local and global change makers, addressing social issues based on our commitment to attain UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We will share stories of trial and triumph. Listeners can hear, discuss the power of affirmations, learn the necessity and importance of dignity, social justice, human rights, peace, and sustainability. Without further ado, Manny, the platform is yours to introduce today's speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Naila, for your overflowing inspiration. Chukwuma Ephraim Okenwe, also known as CEO, due to his initials, is a social entrepreneur and a public affairs analyst. He's the director of the Queen's Model Group of Schools and a Nigerian TV host. CEO is the visionary and innovator behind a reality project and the project lead of a tourism and cultural pageant. He has been a mentor in projects such as Youth Empowered by Coca-Cola and the Boost Your Business training powered by Facebook. He's the executive director of Lead Network, principal partner at a consulting firm, and founder and CEO of a media agency. I was blessed to meet Chukwuma during the virtual live sessions in Geneva of the United Nations Human Rights Council training program. Additionally, I strongly recommend reading CEO's trailblazing book, Thinking Global, that effectively illustrates just how wise beyond his years he is. I am so impressed with him that it wouldn't surprise me that someday there will come a time globally when the widely accepted term CEO is used, that it will be the moniker for Chukwuma Ephraim Okenwe. First question, Chukwuma. What were the challenges of being raised up by a single mother who was the victim of gender-based violence? In what way did the resilience and mentorship of your mom influence the man that you have become?
Honestly, it was quite challenging. I'm the last out of 6 children, and just about 9 days, a day after my circumcision, my dad threw away my mom from the house, and she left with only myself because as at then, she was still breastfeeding me. It was quite challenging that as a child, I never knew anyone I could look up to and call a daddy. The first time I came in contact with my dad was at age 14. Then came that point when I said, I needed to know who my daddy was. And when I met him, because he also was not keeping in touch with the rest members of the family, he asked whether I was the first son, Emeka, and I said, no, I'm Chukwuma. Interestingly, when I walked into his office, I was suspecting he could be my dad. So the question I asked him is, are you my dad? But then my mom single-handedly stood for us in terms of training. Thankfully, she is the founder of Queen's Model Schools that I currently direct as the school director. And having that a privilege of being raised only by her, she kept on reminding us that please, we must not fail because the world is going to laugh at her, considering that, yes, she's no more with the husband, but of course we could be a source of comfort to her. She reminded us that we are the husband and we have to take up responsibility earlier on in life. And that made me, right from age 16, I was conscious of that fact that my mom stood for us and I just have to be excellent in the society in terms of character, in terms of learning, to make her proud, so that when people look at her, they could say, yes, though she never enjoyed her marriage, just 8 years, she lasted 8 years in marriage, right? You know, that was quite a short time. So I determined that I was going to be a source of comfort to her. She's going to find inspiration in my life. And that was one of the things that challenged me as a person. It was not easy, you know, without having a father figure in my life at such an early phase. But of course, my mom stood there as both a man to me and a woman to me, directing all of the part. And then what that now helped me, because my mom was a very compassionate person. She's someone that believed in not just raising her kids, but others. So all of this influenced me into becoming someone that is compassionate. I can look at children and extend that same level of kindness. Because of the challenges she had earlier on in life, one of the things that characterized the institution she found is giving of scholarship, not just to those that perform brilliantly well in the academics, but of course, those that demonstrate that the parents lack the capacity to train them in school. So she would always give us scholarship. And that is why Queen's Model School today in the city of Enugu is renowned for giving scholarship, not just to those that perform outstandingly well in the academics, but also to those whose parents do not have the wherewithal to train, to afford a quality education.
Thank you, Chukwu. Question number 2. What do you consider to be the major setback in actualizing the SDGs by 2030 in Nigeria and Africa at large?
Honestly, largely, I think there is a disconnect between the government and the people. When people hear about SDG here in Nigeria, what people come to think about it is, oh, it's something for United Nations or something for civil societies to talk about. We have not been able to get that to the roots for people to understand their role in actualizing the SDGs. So people just see that as just something to be learned by some kind of presence. And that is why one of the challenge I took up from last 2 years is to let every professional know that in one way or the other, your profession connects to the 17 goals. And you have that role to ensure that you make a mark. Your goal should be not just to make an impact in that field, but to also consider the sustainability. And you should be able to replicate yourself in others to ensure that come 2030, Africa will not be left behind in terms of actualizing the SDGs. And of course, for us here in Nigeria, the 4 most important to us is the first 4. Of course, no poverty, no hunger, zero hunger. You talk about well-being and health, and then quality education. All of these pose the great challenge. And I believe when people can feed well, tackle poverty, have access to health, well-being and good health systems and facilities, quality education to build human capacity, then actualizing the SDGs would be easier. Unfortunately, Nigeria as a nation, especially in the northern part of the country, is still very much combating with poverty. Nigeria at the moment have the highest out-of-school children in the country. Over 13.2 million young children that ought to be in the school are out of school, and it is worrisome. So what we can do in our own part is through advocacy to let parents know that this is really very, very important. But one of the things that is really quite troubling is that in the northern part of the country, many of them do that for religious reasons. They call themselves the Arimajeris and believe that conventional education, it's bad. So religious education, like Islamic studies and all the rest, is what they esteem above conventional studies. And it's quite a challenge.
In your enlightening book, Think Global, you discussed leading a change in chapter 4. Describe these changes and what are the threats and opportunities of swimming against the tide?
Honestly, one of the greatest threats to this, the challenges of leading a change in a nation like Nigeria is that first, you are seen as the odd one out. Because even the very system itself does not support credibility, does not support transparency, does not support openness. There was a time in Nigeria the government launched the whistleblowers policy. Interestingly, you could report a crime to forestall like an act of corruption from happening, and at the end of the day, you discover that your safety is not assured because the same authority you are looking up to respect your privacy, to respect the confidence with which you bequeathed on them, would expose you to those that sometimes you see people harmed for speaking for the truth, for standing up for what is right. So it's a challenge because even the leaders that you want to report to. So like in the police force, you have a challenge. You are a faithful cop, you want to fight crime, you want to fight corruption, you want to protect lives and property, and you report to your seniors. You discover that the intelligence you disclose to them that is supposed to help them to coordinate the security architecture, at the end of the day, they disclose that to miscreants who would come after you. So it's quite a challenge when you are the only one talking a different thing from a nation of about 200 million people. It's quite a challenge. But then the hope in it all is, in the midst of darkness, the slightest of light is appreciated. At least you stand out, you become a voice, because it just appears that everyone is going one direction. And when you choose to go the opposite direction, certainly you become a voice to be reckoned with.
Thank you, Chukwuma.
Thank you.
Nyla, having worked for a decade with underrepresented women in economic empowerment, please explain the vital role exhibited in the areas of human dignity, human rights, and peace.
Thank you, Manny. Before I respond to your question, I would love to thank Chukwuma. It was indeed an interesting experience for me listening to your life's journey, and I salute your mom for raising you right.
Yeah, thank you.
May you reach into your highest self. Thank you.
Thank you, Nyla.
And Manny, going to your question, I worked with women and girls in extreme poverty, as you know, in almost 10 countries, with brutally mutilated acid survivors, domestic abuse survivors, human traffic survivors. And the experience I've had is the deep interrelation of human dignity, human rights, and peace. And honestly, in certain ways, dignity is a basic human right for any living being. Without that, you don't have the hope of life. And I would like to emphasize on dignity and speak a bit about it. Dignity definitely has to be realized. It has to be actualized with action. And 4 vital elements to, I would say, in livelihood is dignity, human rights, access to finance, and peace. It goes hand in hand. And the people I've worked with, they are at times at their rock bottom point when they have no hope or will to live. And that is the poverty of mind and the deepest possible place where you really need to work on it. And our presence, work, and action came up with solutions, and we tried to ignite the small spark in them, which would light inside them to give them the dignity, which builds your self-esteem, I would say, resilience to rise up from ashes. And honestly, as human beings, we are endowed with dignity, and it is a privilege, which at its essence means that we are worthy of life. We are worthy of respect, and we are responsible to give dignity. I think in our day-to-day life, we don't practice it as often. Otherwise, there would be much more peace, respect, and affirm life. Those are intentions that require reflection and continuous work towards it each day. And as all of us know, during the pandemic, domestic abuse globally has increased to 300%. And the worst hit has been women and girls. And they're the largest population of the world. The world's economy, no matter what we say, 17 UN Sustainable Development Goal, equity, diversity, and inclusion cannot succeed until there's full participation of women. When a woman is financially independent, she has the ability to live life on her own terms with dignity that is followed by peace and harmony. We, especially Manny and I from Pillars for Dignity and Destination Peace International, are firmly committed to bring dignity in the lives of the people we serve, especially women and girls, through our training programs. It has been it is a continuous journey, and we hope, Chukwuma, you'll join our journey and be part of it, and we'll work together globally as well. And I have had the privilege to work in Kenya, Manny knows, with Joyful Women, with the Vice President's wife, Her Excellency Rachel Ruto. And I've seen a bit of it. 3 years I've traveled in and out of Kenya. And my heart is still there to support much more. Going back to today's session and to all our listeners, I would like to say, stay safe, stay positive. Please take care during the pandemic. Know that no matter what, our partnership collaboration makes us stronger and makes us what we are. To hear P4D podcasts and Destination Peace podcasts, see the video, stay tuned in, look into iTunes, Spotify, Google, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and our websites, www.pillarsfordignity.org and www.destinationpeace.org. And thank you for being with us. Thank you.